Yeah, we can talk about that later. Alice returned to her work after waking from her nap. If only I could nap. I assume there will be overtime pay. There will. I, of course, I'm going to be getting the overtime pay. The Kuonji estate had an annex that housed a library. The library was filled with books handed down to her from her mother, so it was Alice's territory, such that even Alco dared not enter. Wow. Mansion boundaries. Lovely. If the mansion was a witch's abode, left behind by the times, the library was a fairy tale quarters lost to the ages. It was a natural sanctuary for the young witch who would command employees to do her bidding. She relied on her memory to recall the location of each book on the many shelves, and then she saw it. Upon raising her head, she was met with the most unusual of sights. Her elegant eyebrows bristled in distaste. From that moment on, she failed to accomplish anything she had planned for that day. She was, instead, forced to stare at the strange sight outside her window, eyebrows fixed in that position until the sunset. Lovely. Oh, well. Moving into the grand mansion on the hill had not brought any major changes to Sojiro's day-to-day schedule. He woke up, went to his part-time job, ate breakfast, and went to school. Wow. What a typical typical schedule to put place in your diary. Classes came and went. Oh, wait. Still strange and new, broken up by rare and brief moments of rest until the school day ended. He left school, went to his part-time job, slept, woke up, and studied for exams. Well, typical day for him. A modest life for a modest young man, continuing every day in the same fashion despite his best efforts to change his fortune. Look at that. Sleeps on the bed in the attic. But nothing ever really changes. Whether Alco was by his side in the mansion, as was frequently the case, or whether Alice was making him drink some potion she prepared before going to bed. The former was an attempt by Alco to make him feel better. The latter was some attempt to keep him safe, even if he did not fully appreciate it. Then one day, a day like any other, while Sojiro was pouring himself some tea as he worried over the lack of change in his life. His relationship with Alice was the same as ever, but there was one major change this morning. He was drinking black tea instead of green. Though there were all sorts of different types of tea to be found in the kitchen, a newcomer to the world of tea like Sojiro could not tell one of them from the next. Naturally, his tea-making skills were limited to tea bags, one of which he placed in his cup before returning to the dining table. What the Oh, okay. Alice and Alco were already seated. The two were eating in silence. You know, this is interesting, right? So I'll have like coffee every day, but I haven't drank tea like I do drink like tea like every like what maybe once a week. And it's interesting because I usually I look on social media and there's like this coffee versus tea debate. So I guess I can say a coffee because I drink it like every day. So I guess that comes to personal preference, I guess. Like I'm drinking this whatchamacallit. It's a Starbucks Frappuccino glass bottle right now. I like the mocha flavor, but the vanilla is like my most favorite. The diplomatic description of their breakfasts would be simple, quote unquote. The more accurate description would be 2 slices of stale bread prepared in seconds, quote unquote. I mean, of course it's simple. Like, what do you want? Like toast on top of a fried egg and avocado and eat it? Aoko exchanged a word or two with Alice, took a sip of tea, and stood up from her seat. Since it was winter break for the high schooler Alice, she returned to her room after eating as she normally did, while Aoko headed to the front door, shoes in hand, ready for school. After hurriedly clearing the table, Sojiro rushed out the door after Aoko. Together, they walked down the long hill in the direction of school. Wow, look at Alice being the lucky bastard, having a winter break while the other two has to go to school. Oh god. I don't know if I should feel bad about this. They had spent 3 days following this very simple routine. School had ended and evening had started. Buttered bread roll in one hand, Alice replied with a simple, silent shake of her head.
ならあっちも次の手を考えているんでしょうね。魔術師本体の居場所は見当ついてる?
Her response was exactly the same. Without showing the slightest sign of dejection, she continued to chew the roll and took a stab at her salad. A stab.
そう。私も試験が終わったら手伝うから、それまで悪いけど一人でやってて。今日からあのバカを一夜漬けにしなくちゃいけないんで、余裕ないの。
Good thing I'm muting the mic because you don't want to hear any sort of that unpleasant burp noise. Well, of course. Alice's face grew dour. Is that a typo? Do you mean sour? As if she has something to get off her chest.
問題ないでしょ? アリスはもう休みに入ってるんだから、一日全部使えるじゃない。
Severe, stern, or gloomy in manner. Okay. I mean, she feels resentful. Let's just say that. Alice was indeed on vacation and could spend all day, every day, on her work as a mage. Yet she had spent the past few days holed up in the library instead. She was hardly devoting herself to dealing with the challenger, quote unquote, as Aoko put it.
Alice? 聞いてる?
Are you listening?
今夜からそっちもやるから。
Yeah, you're... yeah, wait. Yeah. You can't be sitting there, be all nihilistic all the time. Sighing, she stood up. What was bothering Alice and what was bothering Alice and What was it she wanted to say? What had she been... What she had been doing only 2 hours earlier? The young witch took her leave from the breakfast table without offering a single clue. Mizaki High was a private school, and as such, its winter break started earlier than public schools. The end-of-term ceremony was in mid-December, followed by a brief respite before the next term began. Of course. That was if and only if they overcame the classic obstacle lying between them and an extended break from school, final exams. The radio continued its broadcast late into the night. A thermos of hot tea eliminated the need to venture down to the kitchen. An electric blanket kept away the winter cold, and a crab-shaped pastry staved off any dinnertime hunger. These were the lengths Aoko had gone to. She needed to ensure that every aspect of her surroundings helped her pull up a successful all-nighter.
期末試験1日目、ご苦労様。それで、生まれ変わる覚悟はできた？
Probably. Sojiro nodded earnestly. Upon returning from work, he encountered not the mage he expected, but the Demon Student Council President Aozaki. Wow. I can't tell calling Aozaki the Demon Student Council President an insult or a compliment. Half a day earlier, the first day of exams were over, and Sojiro was about to head back to the mansion where he hoped to put his plan into practice when...
今夜、私の部屋で監禁ね。
Yo, what?
夕方からのアルバイトは当然キャンセル。ちょっと本気であの点数はありえないから。
Oh, shit. Did he fuck up his exams? No fucking way. A cold blue grin greeted him in the hallway. Clenched in her fist was Sojiro's exam paper. Mr. Yamashiro had no doubt said,
転校してきたばかりだし、しょうがないよね。
but she had snatched the exam out of the teacher's hands the minute he tried to show her. That was how Sojiro had ended up in Naoko's room, instead of the room in the attic to which he was accustomed. Though her situation was far from normal, at the end of the day she was an adolescent girl like any other. Naturally, she felt uncomfortable letting a boy her own age into her room. However, his grades were truly something that called for desperate measures. That explained why her mood was even worse than normal today, and the vein on her forehead was pulsing visibly with anger. Jeez. Talk about the spitefulness.
先に自分の復讐済ませる。あんたはそのテーブル使ってて。
Wow. Aoko turned her back to him and sat down at her favorite desk. Sojiro was left standing before a cheap-looking glass table.
なんかいろいろと慣れないな。なあ、青崎、この青いのなんだ？
Wow. Restless, Sojiro found his eyes drawn to the guitar propped up in the corner.
なんか薄いし青いしとんがってるし、きっと青崎のことだし、もしかしなくても武器か。
The weapon?
楽器よそれ。エレキはともかく、アコギは音楽室で似たようなのあったでしょ？あとこれ以上青々言ったら、そのとんがってるので殴るからね。
This reminds me of this old school cartoon where a character got bonked in the head with a guitar. Or was it a banjo? Whatever. Sojiro plopped himself down onto a cushion, struggling to suppress the desire to retort that it was a weapon after all. Hmm.
ちょっとは落ち着きなさいよ。いつもは耳の遠い大型犬みたいに鈍感なくせに。何か気になるものでもあるの？
What a typical room, as usual. In fact, it was Aoko who was oblivious for once. For his part, Sojiro could not figure out why he felt so restless either. Suffice it to say, they were both pretty clueless in this moment. So we have like a key ring on the table, some magazine stuff. And I don't even know what that thing is on the bottom left, but that is right by the door. I thought it looked like slippers at first, but okay.
もしかして内装？この部屋の家具のグレードが今とは違うから不思議がってるのね。ここ、ベッド以外は私の家から持ち込んだものなの。引っ越してから2年経つけど、まだ屋敷には馴染んでないでしょ。
So she misunderstood the real reason for Sojiro's nervousness. Aoko seemed satisfied that she had resolved Sojiro's anxiety for the time being and returned to her studies. She flipped through her notes and textbooks as if fast-forwarding a tape. There was no opening for an outsider like him to intrude in her high-speed study session. Repelled by her intensity, he retreated to his table. He was at least sensitive enough to pick up on her desire to be left alone. It was a testament to Sojiro that having his needs utterly ignored was now second nature to him, to the extent that he could now happily go about his busyness in solitude. Two hours passed. Then, as the clock neared 11, Aoko's speed and concentration began to slip. Seeing his window of opportunity, Sojiro seized the moment to strike up a conversation.
青崎、ちょっといいかな。
ん？何？
She spoke hesitantly, not bothering to turn to face him. She continued to flip the pages of her textbook, albeit at a slower speed than before.
この3日間、青崎たちの夕食事情を見てきたけど、
And,
君たちの食事はいつもああなのか？
そうだけど、おかしい？
it doesn't really seem not a, I don't know.
そう言われると困るな。ただ学校じゃみんな楽しそうだった。誰かと食事をとるってことはああいう風になることだって思ってた。だからもしかすると。
I'm pretty sure eating with someone in public is more different than eating with someone you. It varies, I guess. But oh well.
もしかしないわよ。別にあんたのせいでアリスと話さないわけじゃないわ。私たちはいつもああだから。
Aoko spoke calmly with her back still turned, seemingly unaware of what he was getting at.
張り詰めた食卓だな。青崎とアリスは仲がいいと思ってたのに。
Not even close. Those two are roommates, but they're not friends. She neither confirmed nor denied his statement. She was, however, surprised by the disappointed tone in which he had made it.
張り詰めた食卓っていうのは合ってるわね。アリスが何回あんたの飲み物にメスカリンを入れてたかなんてもう覚えてないし、昨日なんか堂々とサラダの中に7かまどなんか混ざってるし。
Wait, she did? Mescaline drug. Hmm. Mescaline drug and Rowan drug. Rowan to the salad. I are you are you trying to say that Alice was trying to poison you? Jesus.
ほんとあの子何考えてるんだろう。
Okay, so you're saying she's saying you're saying that uh, that's crazy. That Alco saw what Alice was doing. No, whatever. That's just crazy to me. A bitter smile spread across her face in reminiscence. The pages of her textbook continued to turn.
メスカリン
What's that?
サボテンから取れるアルカロイドよ。アリスが使う以上ただの幻覚剤じゃないでしょうけどね。と私はこんなもんでいっか。
With that, she slammed shut her fourth textbook of the night. After having scarcely changed position the whole night, she finally turned to her chair to face him.
さあ今度はあんたを仕込まなくちゃね。
Oh shit.
今日の4科目の答案実に総十郎らしい出来栄えでそっとしそうになったわ私。
she's about to lose her shit. Her tone was light, but her gaze was heavy as she stared at Sojiro, seated cross-legged on the floor.
原告、地理、数学、電子工学。
Oh no.
あの調子であと2日続けたら冬休みが消えるのは当然でしょうね。そうなると困るのは私なのよ実際。
いや俺も困るぞ。休みなのに学校に行くのはなんか気が乗らない。
You mean that's going to be a problem for both of y'all? Sojiro calmly corrected her.
そりゃあ私のセリフだ。あんたが学校に行くってことは必然こっちまでとばっちりが来るっての。
That means that you have to keep tabs on him. All she could think about, as much as she tried not to, was Mr. Yamashiro and his annoying grin. Well, okay, I guess there's that, I suppose. The look on her face. I mean, doesn't look like she had a big ass forehead.
それ以前に私の目が黒いうちはオール赤なんてやつは許さない。本来なら少年から叩き直すところだけど、ま、あんたはいろいろ事情があるからとりあえず点数だけで勘弁してあげる。私もテストは一夜漬けで片付ける方だからあんた一人仕込むのにそう時間はかからないだろうし。
She sure is not looking forward to that. Sojiro's expression openly soured in response to her declaration. It was obvious he did not think he needed her meddling in his studies.
あんたね、苦労するのは私とあなた、どっちだと思う？
Sojiro got the feeling that it would be him, but he nodded slowly nonetheless. Why couldn't it be both? Then again, it would probably take more effort on her part than on his. And in any case, he knew there was no way to talk her out of it.
この度はご迷惑をおかけします。
Sojiro summarily bowed his head to show gratitude and willingness to work.
よろしい。安心なさい。私だって鬼じゃないから。別に平均点狙うってわけでもなし。予定通りこなしていけば3時には眠れるわよ。
She nodded with satisfaction, pleased by his studious attitude. Studious. He had plenty of obstacles ahead of him, but that sense of humility might be enough to see him through.
って何仏心出してるんだ私。いいしずきくん。この後頼られちゃたまんないから釘刺しておくけど、私がマンツーマンで誰かを仕込むなんてことめったにないから。
Can't be this soft on it. I mean, oh, there's your tsundere notion coming on you.
これはあくまで異例中の異例だって覚えておいてね。
She spoke more to convince herself than him, but his expression still darkened. It made one want to hang a sign around his neck that read, "Please take me home," like an abandoned pet. Aoko chided herself for being so soft. For some reason in that moment she recalled that it had been raining the day they met each other. Wow. What a way to be nostalgic on that one once again. Time passed like the falling grains of an hourglass. I mean,
結局。
wow. I mean, I guess speaking of shitty weather. Yeah. It's going to be a pretty rainy week for me. I mean, by the time I say that, then well, there's going to be pretty sure by the time I say that, then that video is going to be uploaded in like next week or so, because I usually schedule my uploads. Aoko squinted as light poured through the window and she downed another cup of tea. She had lost count of exactly how many she had drank long ago.
一晩かかったね、大崎。
How do you not look tired? Stojiro picked up on what she left unspoken. Aoko had used up all her pep, in staying up all night, but also in shouting at him. He looked pale and uncomfortable, just as he had all night long.
ええ、甘く見てたわ、あんたのことを。
だから、褒めても何も出ないって。
ある意味、褒めるに値するかもね。
She was at the end of her rope, but she could not help the bit of pride that swelled up in her. His lack of even the most basic comprehension was shocking, even taking into account his upbringing in the wilderness. His ability was that of a middle school student, and that was being generous. Preparing him for exams by teaching him new concepts and ideas was a waste of time. Road to memorization was his only hope for passing. Everything he memorized could collapse like a house of cards afterwards for all she cared, so long as he remembered for his exams. Assuming he had the capacity to be a good student in the first place had been her mistake. It took all night to cover the content for just 4 exams, and she still did not feel confident he could apply what he so earnestly tried to memorize.
でもね、真面目なのはいいことだけど、あんた暗記するのに時間かかりすぎ。
そこは多めに見てほしい。今まで頭より体で覚えることのが多かったんだ。
I thought memorize new info. He takes too long to memorize new information. I thought learning is part of a slow process. I mean, especially when Sojiro is a fucking countryside guy, mountainside guy, whatever. Aoko let out an exasperated sigh. Naturally, physical prowess mattered more in mountain life than the intellectual kind, but still.
まあいいわ。これで山城からあんたの成績について相談されることもないでしょうし。紅茶、もう一杯入れてくれる？
Sojiro stood up and obeyed as Aoko stretched her aching back. She had apparently bought the tea bags in bulk, so there were still plenty to use.
まったく無駄遣いだな、青崎は。
He spoke under his breath, so she wouldn't hear. It made him somehow happy to see her so tired and unfocused after the grueling all-night lesson she had given him. It did not cross his mind that the excess tea bags, far from being an indulgent purchase, were purchased intentionally to sustain them through the night. A relaxed expression came across Aoka's face as she watched them, naive and peaceful as could be.
悪くないけど、せめてリーフティーで入れられるように仕込まなくちゃダメかな。
Seeming to have overheard her not-so-inner monologue, Sojiro made to face her.
やっぱり味は違うのか？
違う違う、もう全然。正直私はどうでもいいんだけど、アリスはね、かなりお茶にはうるさいよ。そうだ、宗十郎、アリスとうまくいってる？
Oh boy. Oh boy. What to do? Aoko cheerfully slumped over the table, now covered with textbooks and scribbled notes. Sojiro watched her with a hint of resentment in his eyes.
彼女と会えるのは食事の時だけで、食事と言ったらあれだろ？どうやって仲良くなれって言うんだ？
そう？私は十分脈ありだと思ったけど。そっちはアリスを怖がってないし、アリスはそっちを追い出す理由を見つけようと躍起になってるし。いい条件よ、これって。
What do you want Sojiro to do? I mean, he does work. I don't know what I don't know. Bribe with a gift to get along? No way. Now I'm just talking. Now I'm just like being a dumbass.
全然わからないな。あの子とこっちの関係は遊園地前の青崎と俺の関係と同じじゃないか。一体どこがいい条件なんだ？
とりあえず反目し合ってはいないでしょ。一方通行の関係だけど、それはそれ。アリスにしちゃ上出来っていうか、理由を探している時点で可能性ありってね。あの子は反感に応えることが癖になっちゃってるから、大抵相手を自滅させちゃうのよ。
Question mark? Her ominous words only confused Sojiro further.
知ってしまえば単純な話なんだけどね、あの子の場合。ただ
Except, whether or not he could put it into practice was another story altogether.
難しいよ、青崎は。
He carried her teacups back to the table as he spoke. Aoko picked hers up and took a sip as if to dispel her exhaustion.
でも、確かに君の言う通りだ。俺はまだあの子の顔しか知らない。クオンジ・アリスという名前すら定かじゃないのは問題があるね。
He followed Aoko's lead and took a sip of his own. His cup contained not tea, but plain hot water.
あの子のこと教えてほしい？
Oh shit. You're gonna give me some hints? Aoko scrutinized him carefully as she sat. What is this shit? Let's see. You're gonna give me some... He's gonna get some extra intel about Alice. Most boys might have been captivated by her gaze in that moment, scrutinizing carriage itself. Okay.
いや、そういうことは 本人に聞いてあげるべきだと思う。
But he ignored her and stared straight ahead as if speaking directly to Alice herself.
そうね。ほんと、あんたってアリス好みの対応をするわ。ねえ、前から気になってたけど、客室でアリスに何を言ったの？いくら私との約束とはいえ、あの子が部外者を半日も放置するなんてありえないのよ。
He thought back to that moment. He could recall only 2 or 3 words he had exchanged with Alice after awakening in the guest room. He did not recall the conversation being anything special, but he could not bring himself to casually share it with Aoko now. Share it, that is. After all.
ねえ、どんなセリフであの子の気を変えたの？
Aoko eagerly pressed him for answers. Oh, why? It's like Sojiro frowned, unsure of what to say. He did not know what the interaction had been like for Alice, but for him, it had felt special, sacred almost. The question was, why and for whom was he so concerned?
ほら、白状しなさいってば。隠し事なんて似合わないわよ。
Well, I do hope it's not anything love-related. Otherwise, it would have been pretty dumb. Her disconcerting smile moved even closer. Sojiro did not look like he was able to stay silent much longer. As he would eventually come to realize, Aoko Ozaki had a sometimes troubling propensity to gossip.
まあ、あの子と何を話したかは言わないけど、今の青崎に比べれば花もロマンもなかったのだけは確かかな。
She wasn't as flirtatious as the way you are right now. Huh.
さっきまでは青崎が鬼みたいだったから、いいもんだなって気がつかなかった。
He stared directly into her eyes as he spoke. Aoko nearly leapt out of her seat in panic. Now that he pointed it out, she realized their bodies were practically touching. Oh, God. So what you're saying is Aoko's body language. So what you're saying is Alice's body language is different to Sojiro is different compared to Aoko.
仕方ないでしょ。この方が効率良かったんだから。あんた横にいないとすぐ間違えるし。
You're using the most effective way to break you, of course. Oh, sure. Sure you are. Aoko stood up as she lashed back at him.
そうだね。なんか昔みたいで久しぶりに集中できた。これが異例中の異例っていうのが本当に残念だ。
余裕あるじゃない。その分じゃ今日のテストだけじゃなく、アリスとの話し合いもうまくいきそうね、宗十郎。
Relationship with Alice.
あ、それはもちろん。
Oh, don't worry, he got this. I mean, this is just your average Joe kind of dude that people can be annoyed of him. His cool response caught her off guard, and for a moment she was at a loss for words. It's like, what the fuck? She meant it sarcastically, and yet he responded with a warm smile.
方針変更だ。まずは近くで話しかけてみるよ。嫌なことはいずれ終わるって分かったから。
I guess because he's so much into the mountainside kind of person, he hasn't really learned about when it comes to social cues, I suppose. especially when Aoko attempted sarcasm. Not going to change my strategy. The first step, engage her directly. Can't stay mad forever, as they say. Aoko remained in a state of silent shock as he spoke and rose to his feet. She could not help but feel a reluctant respect for what seemed to be his newfound confidence and competence.
とりあえず今日は一人で帰ってアリスと話してみる。青崎は放課後生徒会だろ？
He was right. It was their last meeting before winter break. Normally, he would have waited until the meeting ended or else gone straight to his part-time job. This was part of Aoko's plan to make sure he and Alice were never alone in the mansion together. Duh.
待った。まさかあんた、一人でアリスとやり合うつもりなの？
別にやり合うつもりはないぞ。し合っても勝てないだろう、アリスには。
His reply made complete sense, which floored her.
でも、青崎がいたら話が複雑になるのは目に見えてるんだ。そんなわけで、今日はゆっくり飛び丸の相手でもしててくれ。
Typical Tobimaru.
本気？
He felt like he was being tested, but nodded nonchalantly nonetheless. Knowing how grave the situation really was, Aoko was not sure how to respond to his apparent lack of concern. The morning light coming through the window marked a stark contrast between the two, which stood bathed in light, which lurked in darkness. That went without saying. The silence lasted for only a brief moment. Staring at him gravely, she said,
そう。なら止めはしないわ。
Is that so? That was all she had. Her dry tone hid the significance of their pregnant silence. Oh, what the hell? Hey, yo, what the hell? Why would you... Why would you insert such a wording like that? Pregnant pause as silence. A pause or silence which is full of meaning or emotion. Well, interesting phrasing, as I suppose. Not revealing the slightest sign of discord.
なんか怒ってないか、青崎。
別に。それで何か考えはあるの？下手な考えは通じないわよ、あの子には。
Sojiro furrowed his brow in deep thought. He knew it would be hard to get close to her through talk alone. In fact, it felt nearly impossible.
言葉で落ちないやつは物で釣れ。
Kinomi had been the voice of wisdom and folly for him countless times in the past. Incidentally, Kinomi had been referring to Aoko at the time he shared that pearl of wisdom. But Sojiro had the distant impression that trying to buy Aozaki's kindness with gifts would not end well.
だいたいアリスの趣味もわからないじゃないか。考えてみると、今の自分と彼女はまるで接点がない。
Sojiro crossed his arms at a loss.
いつものことだけど、何も考えてなかったわけね。
うん。でもまあ、あれこれ考えなくてもいいと思う。アリスにはあれこれ説明するとか、分かってもらおうとか、そういうんじゃなくて、なんていうか。
He pondered intently as he tried to put his vague thoughts into something concrete, but he did not spend much time in thought. With a nod, he concluded,
要は、俺が彼女を好きかどうかってことじゃないか？
He articulated that which is often so hard to say with surprising clarity and calm. It was certainly a prerequisite for the task he hoped to achieve. He had no hope of making her appreciate him with words, or with acts of giving with the expectation of reciprocation. He simply wished to get to know her better because he liked her. That was his honest, uncontrived intention, and it reflected the purity of his heart. But whether that was in his best interest or not was another story altogether. Calculation and compromise, selfishness and conflict. Purity such as his often irritated people who believed that morals went against human nature. Or rather, people who were inevitably forced to believe it. Aoko silently walked away without responding to what Sojiro said. Her long hair swung from side to side as she her long hair swung from side to side as she passed him.
Ozaki?
Noting her strangely cold manner, he called out to her. However, she was already opening the door to leave.
下でシャワー浴びてくるから、あなたは自分の部屋に戻ってて。
Her words lacked any expressive inflection. In his confusion, all Sojiro could do was nod.
いいけど、やっぱり怒ってないか、青崎。
Yeah, you sure you're not mad about this nonsense? Emotion returned to her face as he spoke. Yet it was not the typical irritated look to which he had grown so accustomed.
そうね。あんた流に言えば、多分私は怒ってる。何に対してのものかは、あんまり言いたくないけど。
Okay. Poor Sojiro did not even realize that he himself was the reason. Maybe if only you stopped being overly concerned with that. Again, if you were making that mistake, she would have yelled at you for that. She looked at him, and for an instant he witnessed an emotion on her face of which he had never seen the likes of before.
じゃあね。これが最後になるかもしれないから、お別れぐらいは言っておくわ。あなたはアリスを甘く見すぎてる。でも、それが同時にあんたの強みなのよね。私たちには毒にしかならないけれど。
The door slammed loudly shut behind her. Well, so much for building good conversations, I guess. Oh, wow. Her steps were audible as she walked away on the other side of the wall. The corridor must have been nearly freezing without any central heating, but Aoko seemed perfectly comfortable.
なんで私から出ていくんだ
You said you were going to... whatever.
順番が逆普通先に出てくのはそっちじゃない
Oh, right. It's her room. So he's going to tell him to get the fuck out and go to his room, and then she goes. Aoko promptly kicked Sojiro out of her room. Once again, the wooden door closed with a slam. The corridor was not as cold as he had expected. Not quite as bad as a freezer, at least. What to do from here? Let's see here. This is I wonder how this will go. How far is it when it comes to So if this is going to be one of these moments where Sojiro has to confront freaking Alice by himself, what to do from here? Is it going to go bad, or is it going to go good, or is it going to go for way worse? I'll pick it up another time eventually. That's 6 file. Yeah, this is like 1 page. Wow, that's like a page full of save slots. Yeah. So that'll be the end from here on out.